What's up, flooring family? Welcome to the Huddle. We come at you every Tuesday at 3 o'clock Central to discuss maintaining forward progress in your flooring career. If you like what you hear here, or if you've enjoyed any of the episodes, please consider giving us a like or subscribe in our YouTube channel. Like and subscribe Preferred Flooring's social networks, whether it's Facebook or Instagram. The guys are great on there. And same with Go Carrera. So I missed everybody last week. Thank you guys for jumping in there and covering the show. I appreciate that.
Yeah, hopefully we did okay.
Well, I haven't gotten to look at the whole thing, but I know you guys, so you covered just fine. So this week, we're going to be talking about cash flow and cash flow management, starting with the installation professional. One of the, ways we got started, I think, Preferred Flooring got started installing, so did I. And so managing that early cash flow was key to eventually opening up a full service shop. So I just thought I'd start with you guys, give us a little bit of a, maybe experience on how you guys manage cash flow early on, some of the great things you did and some of the maybe mistakes you made, and then I'll follow up because we have a very similar path to starting our
Yeah,
flooring service, a full service flooring company.
I think I think in the beginning it was we had to learn as we went. Right in the beginning, it was just very hard. So labor only, and you don't factor in a lot of like the consumables and everything else, and cash flow was very tight to say the least. Starting out, I think we structured our pay based off of a salary, so that way we weren't just willy nilly with the bank account. That was, I mean, we're still salary to this day because of it, because it worked. But in the beginning, cash flow was a lot different. We didn't have whatever we didn't have, we had to go buy, and we didn't have the credit line yet, unless we were using our own. So that was pretty difficult and challenging in the beginning. But with the little bit that we paid ourselves on the salary, and then I think we waited about a year before we hired our first employee, so we can build up a cash flow. So that way we didn't have to worry about not being able to pay someone. That was a very long year, and you learn that it's not very hard to live without a lot of things.
Essentially,
Yeah,
like what he just said, like short form is stay broke.
I like it. I'll excuse me, hiccup. I had a very similar thing. When I started, me and my partner that started the company, we both took very low salaries and tried to build up cash. One of the key, I think, important things was we took work from different segments. So we were labor only, but a lot of times we'd work for a shop because we'd get paid every week. And then sometimes we'd work for an interior designer who would pay us when the job was done. And then sometimes we'd started working with the general contractor who'd pay us every, in 30 or 60 days. We didn't jump right into the, working with the GC on big construction jobs. We'd have never made it. We also didn't just put the money in the bank and take whatever was left over.
Right.
Um, and so I think that was very wise. I still take a salary myself after 20 years. So um, the key of staying broke, as you said, Daniel, is like that's what we did too. It's not an easy road, but ultimately, if your goal is to, you know, I've seen it I've seen it happen the other way. I've seen plenty of guys do work and then they get in real trouble because they either try to do, you know, non-cash flowing projects, meaning working with the GC or something like that too early because because they're really good. So the GC's like, hey, I want you to do my job, and they say okay, and then they do another project for a general contractor and they don't get paid forever, and they were not prepared for that. So I think having a good mix of projects is key too. Did you guys kind of mix that around as well as residential? I think that's another one where you can
Yeah.
get that deposit, get that money flowing into you, that kind of thing. Did you guys do that too?
Yeah, I think we got pretty lucky. A lot of the places that we started working for right away were, you know, turning an invoice, and within 7 days we were getting paid. If it was larger projects, you know, that payment schedule would be slightly extended, but for the most part, I was very transparent with everyone, and so was Daniel. Like, hey, you guys, we're starting out. Like, we have $0. We invested everything we had when we were let go, and we invested a little bit that was borrowed. And they were like, if you need a check, just let us know. If you need a check, just let us know. We didn't abuse that. We didn't even ask for that. It was just offered. So, you know, to go back to where you said the contractors where you're waiting 30, 60, 90 days, we were fortunate to not be in that scenario right away. And you're right. Had that been an option, I don't know if we would have went down that road because of the length of time. The cash flow, everything that was coming in was going right back into it right away. Like we had nothing. You know,
Yeah, you had to buy equipment
yeah.
almost immediately. Yeah, that's what we found. And a big benefit of paying yourself a salary as well, just as a side note, is I'll use some personal experience here with my father, who has worked for himself for I mean, for probably 30, 40 years. He worked for himself as a painter. He never paid himself a salary. So the only Social Security he has today is what he earned the first 10 years of working as a union and painter. So, you know, today his Social Security income is like $600 a month because he never paid in. He didn't pay himself a salary, W-2 salaried position. He just paid his expenses and kept what's left. So there's another benefit of like doing that. Um, I gotta just hope that it's actually gonna be there when I turn
Yeah.
65.
Fingers crossed, right?
But yeah, but the point here is, had he paid himself a W-2 and paid into his Social Security way back then, he'd be in a different position today. And you know, you can't go back. But my
No.
advice to any installer is, if you're even if you are just an installer and you got a couple of guys working for you, pay yourself a salary, let your bank account grow. It'll come in handy on a rainy day. You'll have a little bit of money to invest in things that you may want to invest in, whether that's equipment or, expanding your business. But living off of what's left will get you, I've seen it get a lot of guys in trouble, just,
Hmm.
and proper, part of that is probably the next topic under this is like not just um, how do I say this? A lot of installers who get started and they live off of the proceeds tend to live off all the proceeds. So you never budget your personal life because of it. You just have this money coming in, and then properly tracking expenses doesn't happen as much then.
Right.
Kind of, I guess the bottom line is run it like a business. If you're an installer, run your installation business like a business.
You know, we had a conversation like that in the mastermind group with Kyle about that too, and it's hard to track your it's hard to track any project and get your daily operating costs if you aren't on a set pay schedule, right? Like if you're just starting out and you're going through your bank account and everything that gets deposited, you're treating it like a flow through to you. You don't really know where to make adjustments financially on some of your pricing on what am I spending on supplies for this type of work or this week or this month.
I think that's one of the biggest things when we started. That's what we did. Is you have to separate your business income from your personal income. Like,
Yeah.
just because the business is making all this money doesn't mean I'm making all this money, even though we're technically a pass-through entity. So the IRS treats it like that, but you still have to separate that based on, all right, this is what I want to do in business. This is how I can get there. This is my own personal over here. And like I said, it wasn't a mindset of stay broke. It's what we had to do in order to move forward. Like, in order to see the vision transpire, it's like we're only going to pay ourselves this much and then constantly reinvest into the business. And that's what we did for years. So that's what we're still doing right now.
And you know
And
what?
it also helps you on taxes because when you're paying yourself a weekly salary, you're paying in taxes. What we did, and I still do to this day, is I max out my taxes. Like, I want them to take as much out of my weekly income, my salary, and then I knew what I needed to bring home to make do early on. And that's what I paid myself. Plus, I made sure I paid enough to cover the taxes. I wanted to pay as much into taxes because it is a pass-through tax structure. If you're, say, an S corp or even an LLC, the profit and the burden of that profit flows through to you. But like you said, have a separate bank account for your company, and then pay yourself a weekly salary into your just like you would any employee, right into your personal account. But you're paying those weekly taxes, and it's easier to stay up on the taxes early on. That way you don't have this huge tax bill at the end of the year. If you just have one account and you pay everything out of it and you just keep all the extra, you better be making some quarterly tax payments. But one way to do that almost automatically is max out your tax amount that you pay in on a weekly basis from your salary. And then, at the end of the year, when your income is all calculated for taxes, you've paid a pretty fair sum in from your personal income. And me and my partner, when we first started, I bought him out in '03, but from '99 to 2003, we both just took salaries, and it helped us stay up on our taxes, kept our tax burden down at the end of the year, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of benefits to doing it that way.
Yeah, and we in full disclosure, everyone, like, I learned this the hard way from previous ventures, right? And that's why when Daniel and I partnered up and we decided to start Preferred, it had to be structured right away. The other way didn't work. I mean, it worked for as long as there were funds in the bank, but as soon as you get under a certain dollar amount and you have X amount of employees, it doesn't work anymore. You're scrambling. You're in scramble mode. You got everything's separated, right? So your employees, your wages, then everything else on top of that, your vehicle, then maintenance. And starting out, nobody goes out and buys a brand new vehicle, right? So you're going to buy a used vehicle. You got to figure you're going to spend $500 a month in maintenance on that, on top of fuel and whatever else. You're going to be spending a truck payment, a van payment, anyway, and maintenance on an old vehicle. So learn that one as well.
Yeah, and even if you do go get a new one, you got a bigger vehicle payment. So I mean, at the end of the day, having those separated is wise. And like I said, there's that added benefit of having some taxes automatically coming out of your account or out of your check on a weekly basis. And then, frankly, it helps you to not overspend on a personal level. Sometimes you're going to have some down weeks when you're installation only. And it's nice to have that extra money in the bank where your salary still comes through each week, just like it has. And if you live within those means, then you can make it through, a period of time without actually working. And you may be out, scrambling for work, but there are slow times. I mean, it's not been around for a while, but it does happen. I remember installing and out trying to drum up work, and it may have a week off, but I still got my salary because we put the money in the bank.
Yep, I remember planning for it too. I remember the lulls like right before Thanksgiving, and then after Christmas. That was about where I was at. So,
Uh-huh.
and then it always a little bit of a lull right before we call it school season started, and it just it's like the tide was just pulling itself back for a second, but it was going to come back strong, and you got to be ready.
That's a good analogy.
So Jeremy commented on Facebook. He says one of the reasons why he hasn't jumped in full time on his own is not being able to have the steady cash flow. But being a W-2 employee, he's able to invest in 401k and move up the ladder to get off his knees in a reasonable amount of time. Because I think you see too many guys out there that, like he says, they're one-man crews and, they're 60 years old right now. And it's because they didn't take the time to plan things out when they were younger. Kind of like you said, your dad, that's all he did was, when he was in the union, and then he has really nothing after that. It's a lot of these guys take a look at that bank account, and I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of us come from, pretty much nothing. So it's when you start seeing that amount of money rolling in, it's hard to just look the other way and keep it into that account. But it's all mindset, right? It's where do you want to go? Delayed gratification. Where do you want to go?
That's right.
And what do you have to do in order to get there? And a lot of these guys can't see past the weekend. We see guys that are, on Saturday they're out at the casino, and then on Monday they're complaining because they can't work because their vehicle is broke down and they don't have no money to fix it.
Yeah, I can't count how many times I've had that, talk with an installer who doesn't have gas money on Monday or Tuesday or whatever, and can't get to the job site. I'm like, dude, you just got paid $6,000 last week. How in the world? And a lot of times it's just it's so much easier to indulge in the things where you would have discretion when you just take what's left over. If that's how you're going to operate your business, and you got $3,000 left over after a $6,000 week, and you pay everybody, and you go out, you had $3,000 in your mind. Well, I paid myself $600 for the first 4 years. That's what I paid myself on a salary, and we didn't move that for 4 years, neither one of us. So, it can be tough, but it is delayed gratification. If you're wanting to build a business, even a successful installation business, you got to have some money put aside for training your guys, for training yourself, for getting to convention. All those things go into this big bucket, and you're just a W-2 coming out of that bucket, and you let that bucket grow. And I know what you're saying. I mean, there was weeks me and my helper would do $6,000, $7,000 worth of work. I get paid $600. That bank, our business banking account was going up and up and up, and I'm still just kind of scrounging by personally. But if you really want to grow a business or grow a nest egg, even maybe you don't want to be a full service, but you don't want to be living week to week forever. Grow that nest egg big enough to where you can increase your salary in a couple of years, and then that nest egg can continue to grow, where you're not always dependent. I think what I did not want to do, and the reason I was just super fine with taking a salary, is I did not want to have to starve the next week. I'd learned how to live on $600, so that was going to work. And then I didn't want to have this time frame where my family had to go down. If you do it that way, we didn't ever have to go back in lifestyle. It wasn't a lavish lifestyle, but it was the lifestyle we were living at that time. We didn't have to go backwards because we were always getting that check because that nest egg was growing. So on down weeks or slow weeks, I was still getting paid, even if I only created $1,000 that week. I still got my normal payment, and I was, you know what I'm saying? It's like treating yourself like a good employee is the best. I think that's the best when you first start.
You create a routine, and it does get easier. It gets way easier once you create that routine. And I just don't understand how back when I was younger, how I didn't see that and the need for that. So, and that's one thing too. I think Daniel made me think about it when he earlier is when there is no education classes out there. Everybody's worried about hand skills and installation, but there is no financial management classes out there for a young entrepreneur who can go get a 1099, a DBA, or LLC, right? They don't have any of that. You got to do all that on your
That's
own.
why we're here.
Yeah, and
And that's the thing, though, is they do have those classes. It's just you have to go looking
you have to
for
look
them.
for them. Yeah, they're not readily available. Like, oh, here's a booklet. If you're starting a DBA and you have a business license, here's a booklet from your county. I mean, that would be
That's the
too
thing.
easy.
It's like the FCEF and you know we're trying to recruit more installers, but recruiting new installers doesn't necessarily mean we're recruiting good business people. Like they keep on pushing them into you can make this much money and be your own boss and all this, but they don't push them to where it's like go come through our program and then go work for this company for X amount of years before you do this. It's always that mindset or that statement where it's like you can be your own boss. And I mean you know as well as we do, being the boss is not always the greatest thing in the world. It's
Yeah,
the
it's not
amount of
always
stress
cracked up to
that we
be
go through.
sometimes.
Yeah, it's like it would be so much easier if we weren't, but at the same time, if we weren't in the positions that we are now, we wouldn't have this platform here talking to other guys that need the help.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say enough that, we've touched on so many subjects that if you are starting out as an installer and you're thinking about, or you're an established installer and you're thinking about like taking the next step in your, uh, in your career or your business, forward progress to us means like wherever you're at right now, you can move forward. You can get bigger, better, or just better. But, what have we shot? 60 plus episodes. And a lot of them have to do with how you run a small installation company and how you can turn that into, like, I could have been extremely successful from a monetary standpoint without going full service because I did pay myself a salary and I did create I did good installs and I attracted good installers. Me and one other crew, we really could have had a very good lifestyle. I wanted to grow into a full service company. There was a big need in my area, and so that's what I wanted. But you can run a successful installation only company as well. It's just having some discipline with your money. We're talking about cash flow, so you got to consider making good business deals on the front side, like getting terms that fit your business model, and collecting well, and then doing good work. I think those are all kind of, I hope, understood. You have to do good quality work. You got to collect your money, and you got to do the work that best serves your business. But at the end of the day, man, you can go any direction in your once you have the hand skills and the business mindset that of discipline. I see it all the time. The biggest problem that plagues the installation industry is guys just living off of what they make and not having discipline around their money. I know a guy that, he does real well from how much he pulls. And, instead of, he replaced his old truck with a Mercedes Benz, I think that kind of spoke a lot to where his mind was. I mean, could have went out and got a really nice van that would better serve your business. I don't think I drove a car for. I still don't drive a car. I probably haven't driven a car in 20 plus years, but I didn't drive a non-installation vehicle for almost 10 years. Like my kids, I'd take out the seats and I'd ratchet. I'd literally put the seat back in so that I could put my kid's car seat in my van.
I can't imagine not driving a work vehicle, like something that I can throw my tools and material. I can't like. There's a need for it, 100%
But
of
it
the time.
happens, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I remember driving my S10 across the country with a 35-foot roll of broadloom, and from the tailgate over the cab, and it scratched everything up. Yeah,
It was sad.
yeah, it was fun
I
times.
think another piece of this cash flow portion is also tracking your helper's labor and making sure, whether it's a helper or other installers that work for your install company, making sure that they're being properly trained and that you care about the quality they're putting in and their production. Giving goals. I know we've talked about that in the past about giving your installers goals. When I was just me and another guy, I had a helper, he had a helper. I mean, we both set goals on a weekly basis on what we were going to try and get done on a bigger job. And sometimes it was a daily goal if it was smaller projects. And you just kind of got to get together and kind of track that labor and know where your expenses are coming from, because labor and equipment, gas, all that stuff, it adds up.
It does. Like so, when you first started, how were you tracking for your partner and the helpers? Like I've always done like time cards. We used to do handwritten time cards, track hours. Some people would do square footage or just by the job or by the day. What are some other ways for people starting out to track that? Because that has a lot to do with it too. You got to be able to track what they're installing, how much they're installing, or if you're by the hour, like is the rate match what's going down?
Yeah, we always did it by the hour, and the lead guy, my other lead guy, he got a salary and then a bonus on whatever he beat. So that was the purpose of the goals. So say you got $1,000 job, just as an example, and it's going to go for a week. And as an example, he gets paid $500, and his helper gets paid $200, and there's $1,000 of money in that budget for the labor portion, plus a profit to the company. Well, we just bonus him out the difference. So it always encouraged them to work, that they weren't working harder for nothing more. It wasn't really that unique of a setup. It was just how we chose. Looking back, I probably would have done a little different, but that's how we did it. And it worked out pretty well. I mean, my other installer performed well. He worked hard, and he was there. You got to give employees, and he was an employee, so but you got to give those guys a reason to get up and go to work. And we just could not afford a big, huge hourly rate. At the end of the day, some of the jobs didn't have any money at the end of the wages. But again, we were trying to set precedents that when we have good jobs that pay out well, that you can make more money. But at the end of the day, you need to be budgeting your life for what you know you're going to make.
So what about financial establishment, or would you know guys who still use a shoebox? I mean,
shoebox of receipts. Well, it's not even a financial establishment. That's a bookkeeping software. Because Matt, he says bookkeepers are very helpful to track your expenses, but.
Yeah.
Back then, we didn't have all the fancy technology, so it was literally turning in an expense report each week from each crew, every gas receipt, everything. If they're out of town, food receipts and hotel receipts and all that came through. And then my partner would put that into QuickBooks. That's what we used at the time. And this was before QuickBooks went online. So this was just a piece of software on a computer at the time. And, we tracked all the expenses, including labor, and then what was left over was available to be bonused to the other installer. And I never bonused myself. That was the sacrifice I made. There was no bonus to myself. All my extra stayed in the bank account for the company.
Better safe than sorry. Yep, I get it.
Yeah, I mean, we were used to eating ramen noodles. I just didn't want to have to go down to canned beans.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with canned beans.
If you're out there and you're getting ready to start a business or thinking about it, going on your own, I'm sure you have family or friends that will support you. And I'm not too proud to say that Daniel and I we counted on family for some food sometimes. And it helped. Not saying like, hey, can you feed me on Wednesdays and Fridays? It was
what y'all doing today?
Yeah, what are you guys doing today? Can we come over? Oh, lost you.
Nope, we lost the audio on you.
I think you just gotta turn on your headphones, or your mic on your headphones.
Thanks.
There it goes.
Is it good?
Yeah.
I'm back. Okay,
back.
Sorry about that. I don't know if I touched something or what when I adjusted them. But I guess you don't have to start that way, do you? I mean, not everybody has to start struggling.
No.
If you've established yourself working by the hour or by the day or whatever, as an employee for a company, and you've got a good savings stocked away and maybe some assets stocked away that you can get a loan against, you can kind of jump in and skip some of these harder steps we're talking about. I mean, we're not saying everybody has to go through the ramen noodle phase, so to speak.
No,
but
when we started, both of our credit scores were not the greatest, and we were already struggling, and it was just not an ideal situation, and we just did what we had to do in order to make that situation better.
Yeah.
And kudos to the people who are in a better spot. Like you said, if you are already planning on doing something like that for years, and now you feel like you have the finances to pull that trigger and you're comfortable, yeah, you're in a way better spot, and that's a lot smarter and way ahead.
I encourage, to plan it. One thing that you guys and I have in common as well is we didn't plan it. I mean, you guys, it was kind of a very similar scenario. I think I got notice that the company I was working for was getting ready to get bought out the fourth time, and the new ownership group was one of the existing PMs that worked there that did not like me at all. And she's a friend of mine today, but back then she did not like me at all, and I knew my writing was on the wall. I was getting booted as soon as she took over. So I had to quit and go make money right away. So I didn't have a lot of time planning on it. I just figured, hey, I can do at least as good as that company was doing, which was not that good. And this new ownership group coming in, promised the world, just like the previous one did, that things were going to be better. And when I say better, I'm not saying getting paid more. I'm talking about having checks that would clear the bank account.
Oh, yeah.
One time I held 5 checks that did not clear. And you want to talk about Speedy Gonzalez on the way to the bank, when I'd get the tip, who from the PM that ended up being my partner, he'd tip me when he knew a check came in. And then I'd go jump in my car and run to the bank, see how many of those checks I could get cashed. And, that just getting checks that would clear would have been an improvement back then. The new ownership group, when they came in, was promising things were going to be different. I just didn't think I was going to be there anyway, so I decided to go out on my own. And when you do that and it's kind of last minute, I'm in the same position you were. I didn't have the best credit at the time. I was young. I was only 22 when I started the company, so I didn't have. It wasn't that I didn't have good credit or bad credit. I just didn't have any
Yeah,
credit.
no credit.
I had one car loan that I was paying a ridiculous percentage on because I didn't have any credit. And so there's a hard road, but you just, all I'm doing, all this, the purpose of this discussion is to let you know that one, other people have went through it. Two, there are brighter days if you can be disciplined with your money. And I can tell you right now, there's for every one of the stories like yours or ours, there's 50 stories of the guy that lives off his business 100% and uses all the funds and never has a rainy day, doesn't pay his taxes, and ends up working for somebody out of necessity, not out of choice. They have to work
Yep.
somewhere because the IRS is after them and they need to get garnished. I mean, I know those guys.
So do we. And you're right. We are definitely outnumbered by those guys. So
Because the reason they go W-2 is the fact is they go W-2, then the government can only garnish their wages. They don't go take their home and their cars and
yeah,
Yeah,
But
everything.
if you stay on 1099 and the government, if you owe the back taxes, they come start taking stuff.
dip their hand in your whole bank account.
Yeah.
Bye
So
bye.
So cash flow is important early on. I mean, that's the bottom line to this is collect your money, do good work, make sure you're installing good product so you don't have failed projects early on. One thing that'll kill you as an installer is doing poor work. Early on, it'll just kill you. Having to go back and rework or redo stuff. I'm not saying we were perfect in that regard, but we had very few and far between of going back and having problems when I was installing.
Yeah,
And
we're pretty
then if you
consistent.
can get a good mix of jobs between homeowners, maybe a little longer term stuff like with your interior designers or something like that, and then working for a shop that could give you that weekly pay. Having a good mix there kept our cash flow a lot better. If I'd been just GC early on, there's no way in hell I would have made it. And same with if I had an interior design group, and they're the ones who really kind of helped us uh, see that we were going to have business as a company. And they were a high-end interior designer, but they didn't pay. They collected from the client and then paid us. And they didn't pay us every week. It was when the job was done. And if it was a 2 or 3 week project, we had to wait 2 or 3 weeks for the money. But we had all the expenses, all the gas, all the labor, all the car payments, and everything.
You're muted again.
Sorry, I had a call come through. I had to be on my phone because I wasn't smart enough to charge my laptop beforehand. So, you know, even if I would have done only the interior designer's work, it would not have worked out. It wouldn't have made it because I couldn't have always been spanning those 3 weeks. We had to have a good mix of those three. Working for a shop, we got paid every single week, and that helped a lot. Of course, they didn't like it when we started working with GCs, and then we lost that. But that's a natural maturation of growing your business, I think.
Yeah. So good advice is to make sure that you don't have all your eggs in one basket, that you do have a mix of pay schedules, understand those pay schedules, and stick to turning in the invoices if needed, right? Because if you miss that pay period, that's your fault, not theirs. Don't overextend your finances on labor, material. Like sometimes we did that too a couple times where we weren't into material sales, but we would buy material with money that we didn't really have, and then we'd be waiting. It's like,
Yeah.
didn't think that one through. Track employees, contractors' wages will help.
And have separate bank accounts.
That, yeah,
Like
yeah.
That's probably the first one. Have a business account and have your personal account, and don't live out of your business account.
And start working on your business credit on day one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
pay
know
well.
this is about cash flow, but that's a very important piece too, right? Like, if we didn't build credit and get to a point where we said, all right, we either use it or we don't, right? It was, all right, let's use it so that way we're not using what we have, because I know that what we have down the road is going to pay for that, right away.
A lot of the cash flow, like when we were running 12 installers at one point, and that stuff starts adding up, especially when you're waiting for checks. And it's like, all right, let's get this line of credit going. And then you talk to them, and they're like, all right, we'll give you $5,000. And it's like, well, $5,000 isn't going to do anything. But that $5,000, and then we just, initially you take it out, and then you repay it. And it costs you a little bit of money. But then they're like, all right, you paid that pretty quick. Here goes 25. Oh, you did the same thing. Here goes 50. Oh, here goes 100. And it's like you have to steadily build on that. And honestly, it's the cost of doing business sometimes, and that's how you gotta just look at things. It's not, I don't want to pay interest on this because I just don't want to pay interest. It's, business is expensive, and sometimes you gotta come out of pocket in order to build something.
That's the business expense is paying interest,
Yeah.
and building. That's a great point. Is starting to build that business line of credit, whether it's with your bank, with your vendors, pay your vendors on time. They'll extend you out a little longer, and sometimes you get to that nice 30-day net with the vendor, and then you're getting paid on a weekly basis from these, and get that mix was really important for us. I know you guys have a similar deal where you did some homeowner stuff where you get paid a little faster, you can get 50% down, and like I said, working for a shop, we go do labor only and get that money within a couple of weeks, and then your longer term stuff. But building that business line of credit, whether it's with your bank and or vendors, is super important, because then you're not just ripping out of your cash.
Yeah, that's always a little heartbreaking when you got to dump a large chunk out of your hard-earned money.
And pay your taxes, because you don't want to be the guy paying interest on your taxes. That's another thing. Like that just snowballs on you.
It does,
And
that hurt me
that's
too.
where you don't want to. That's where you don't want to be borrowing from.
Right, and that's where, when you say paying quarterly, right? Because if you don't pay quarterly and you only pay at the end of the year, you're going to get hit with a penalty regardless. So
Yeah, and the penalties one thing, but those quarterlies, it just is another discipline thing. Like it helps you be more disciplined in paying those tax bills. They're not going to go anywhere. They're going to be there. So, at the end of the year, if you profited $100,000 and you got to give 25% to the government, do you have 25K in the bank that you can just send in? You can sacrifice? Well, that's why it can be tough if that happens to hit at a slow time in your business, and maybe you've been drawing on it, and when's it hit? At that slow time at the end of the year, like what Jose was just talking about. Maybe you don't have it. Well, then you get your real penalties when you're not paying it at the end of the year. Plus, you start incurring interest and all these things. So, being disciplined on your quarterly, estimates, and I mean, there was times we'd get money back because we do the quarterly estimate, and plus my weekly payroll.
Yep.
To me and my partner, we were taking out our income taxes on that as well. And since we were an S corp, all the money flowed through. So all that tax that we paid in every single week, plus our quarterly estimates, we'd actually get some money back at the end of the year. That didn't last long. As you grow, that's harder and harder to do. But still, I would recommend paying in. And of course, always got to make this comment: talk to your tax attorney, talk to your accountant, and make sure to get professional advice. But what worked for me was paying quarterly taxes, that quarterly tax estimate, and taking a W-2 so that I could get taxes taken out weekly.
And when you pay your taxes, you get basically your receipt is giving you your net worth, and that will help when you are starting to get traction and want to apply for that, $5,000 loan, 10,000, 15,000. You got to have a net worth. If you don't have anything but what someone's paid you, that's nothing. They need to know that you've paid into the government to even qualify for any of those loans.
Well, it doesn't matter what you want to do. If you're gonna go through, if you want to apply for anything, they're gonna want to see, those. Let me see those last 3 years of your business taxes.
Yep.
And
Yep.
That's something you don't want to fall into either. And we've touched on this numerous times before. It's not being able to build where you want to go because of your negligence on not paying taxes, and then you can't pay cash for everything.
No, and that's a pain in the rear anyway, and that's not really running a business. That's owning a job. And you're not even doing a great job at that if you're not paying taxes. And some people are just fine owning a job, but you still got to do the right thing, pay in your taxes. Again, I don't care if today I was still installing on a daily basis, and I'd still pay myself a salary. I would still do it the same way. That's the one thing looking back I wouldn't change. I think it was the right thing to do. It worked, and it helped me tremendously in getting that cadence down and understanding when I didn't really understand a lot about business. I didn't have to worry about making it. I don't know. There's a certain level of personal security and knowing that you're getting that payment every week from yourself. Yes, but still that you're not going, like I said, going from ramen noodles to canned beans, or maybe canned beans are better. The other's a backdrop, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, we're Mexican, so we love beans.
Yeah, when you said beans earlier, I was like, yeah, beans. I love it.
Come on, man, they were good. All right, so we've kind of touched on the biggest things, and you just kind of capped them off there a second ago, Jose. Is there anything else you guys can think of, a pitfall for the new guys kind of getting going? I know one of the comments was talking about 401k and things like that. Obviously, you can do that on your own as well.
Right.
If you're responsible with your money, you can pay into a 401k right as you're taking your W-2.
I do have something to add to that. To this whole conversation is, and to each their own, right? It's okay to say no when you start getting the cash flow and you have friends and family reaching out to you. You're trying to build something that's going to last a lot longer than a favor. It's okay to say no.
Yeah, well, I think that can go down a really deep rabbit hole because I think we both probably have some instances where all of a sudden friends you haven't talked to in a long time all of a sudden find you again.
I mean, I'm a sucker for family, right? I'm a sucker for family, and Daniel is too. And if I said we say no all the time, I'd be lying, right? But if you and your business are not in a good spot, it is in your best interest to have that control and say, I'm sorry, I can't right now, even though it hurts your heart.
I think that's the key, is knowing that if you can't, you don't.
Yes.
If you can, awesome.
100%.
Help out. But at the end of the day, don't fool yourself. Don't let your ego, cause you to say, oh, they're going to think I'm not making. That's what got me. I would help people out because I didn't want them to think my business wasn't doing great. So if I give them money, they think I was successful. As for family, mainly, that this venture that I jumped out head first into the water for, I didn't want anybody to think that it wasn't panning out. There's plenty of times I gave money when I shouldn't have.
Well,
Today,
this is what being a business owner is. This is what we're riding a roller coaster.
Yeah, it is certainly a roller coaster. All right. Well, with that, guys, it was a pleasure to see you guys. How was I'll tell you, I caught a bunch of fish that were about this big, and a few that were. Let me back up. That were like that. So
Where were you actually?
I went to northern Canada, Saskatchewan, and there's a place there called Ina Lake Lodge. A buddy of mine owns that, and then we take a float plane on into the Northern Territories and go to some lakes that have never been fished or rarely fished and fillet them. So it was a good trip,
That
and I
sounds great.
appreciate you guys covering for me last week.
Yeah, not a problem.
It
Everybody
was
needs a
basically
break.
just him talking the whole time.
Try to talk the whole time.
I don't know if that's a indication of your knowledge or.
No, I'm just pretty good at filling dead space, dead air, right? Like I'm the filler guy. It's okay. I understand.
All right, guys. Well, thanks a lot, and we will see you guys next week. And looking forward to hanging out with you guys at the end of this month.
Yeah,
Yes,
a couple
sir.
more weeks, right?
Yep.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yep. About 2 weeks away, guys. I guess it's worth saying again. FCICA and the CFI, their combined convention is going to be in Orlando. So if you haven't if you don't plan on attending or you hadn't thought about attending, I would strongly encourage you to get down and come hang out with some professionals that can. Look, we all learn from somebody. I learn from people. I know that Jose and Daniel learn from others at these shows. Come down and you can see a bunch of different types of businesses and how they run, and people will talk to you and help you through some of your problems. So I encourage you to get down there and experience it.
And most importantly, Crystal will be there.
Yeah, and Crystal will be there. Go down and check out the show. I almost said go down there and check out Crystal.
Yeah, you can do that too. That's fine. We keep looking over because Daniel has a new addition to his family.
This is the new family member.
Oh,
This
what kind
is
of dog is
Luna.
that? Luna.
Yeah,
All right, welcome to the family, Luna.
What kind of dog? She's a
Shiba Inu.
Yeah.
Shiba Inu.
It's my daughter's dog.
I've heard that somewhere.
It's fancy.
Dogecoin is based on a Shiba Inu dog.
Oh, it's a cryptocurrency
Yeah.
thing. Gotcha. Sweet. That's a cutie. All right, guys.
We'll see you
I'll talk
next
to you
week.
guys next week. Appreciate you joining, and we will see you guys later.
See
Have a
ya.
good one.